always astounds me in what a colossal epic and what a colossal mess it is, both at the same time. First, let's look at the good stuff. The artwork, for example, is a very different take for Disney. The backgrounds never look three-dimensional, but they're not supposed to. It's supposed to be very much like tapestry work, or like paintings you'd see in a medieval castle. It was a very different approach, and it looks very nice, though I guess at times it can be a little distracting for some viewers. I personally don't mind, though. Let's also look at the side characters. The fairies are great. They have to hide the Princess Aurora for 16 years to keep her away from the evil of Maleficent, who again is friggin' great. I mean, one of the best villains. Top 3 easily. It's a villain that's evolved almost entirely from the voice acting and the animation. Because to be fair, her motivation's not very strong. She gets snubbed at a party, that's it. But the extremes she'll go to get revenge, now that's friggin' awesome.
Before the sun sets on her 16th birthday, she shall prick her finger on the spindle of a spinning wheel and die.
She's classy, she's despicable, she's quiet, she's loud, she's subtle, she's over the top. She's everything you want in a villain. She can wave her hand to make something move, or she can turn into a fire-breathing dragon. Friggin' awesome. The music is also fantastic, taken from one of the best-known ballets under the same name. It leads to some memorable songs as well as some great climax music. In fact, the climax itself is one of Disney's best. The energy, the animation, everything that goes into it is just fiery blaze. It's always the best part of the movie every time I watch it. Now let's get to the stuff that doesn't work, like the main characters. Good God, are they boring. When I think of the stereotypical boring princess, this is who I think of. She does nothing, she has little to no character, she just sort of sings and looks pretty. I don't even think she's that pretty. But how about the prince? He's the dashing hero in the end. Surely he must be interesting, right? Actually, he's even more boring. Do you realize that the last line he says in this movie is "Goodbye, father," and that's about halfway through? After that, he doesn't get a line. He just runs around swinging his sword. That's it. At least she has an excuse. She's put to sleep for the second half. Him? God, couldn't we get a grunt or an oof or something? There's also a lot of filler in this movie, and maybe that's one of the reasons why the main characters are so bland. I think this movie really liked its side characters much more. Most of the time is spent with the fairies, the villains, the 2 kings. That really doesn't lead to anything. So really, it's a very unbalanced film. But again, I guess like most Disney films, the stuff that works well works really, really well. The villain is great, the fairies are great, the animation is great. That ending fight scene is just friggin' fantastic. So it's kind of hard to judge this movie, seeing how not only does it have some good things, but it has some of the best of any of the Disney films. But it goes beyond just typical visuals, it actually does have some very good characters, even if they are the side characters. For that, I think it holds up for several viewings. I did see this film quite a few times growing up, and I did like it every time. There's just several scenes I liked a lot more than others. But they are good scenes and they are good characters. So from a storytelling point of view, the film probably doesn't work, but just from a selfish point of view in terms of seeing something that you've never seen before or something that's done really, really well, there's a lot of things to enjoy. Even if it turns out on the whole you don't like the film, I still think it's worth looking at. The stuff that's impressive is still really impressive. I know I'm not done watching it, and I'm sure 1 or 2 more views are not far in my future. Looking for a movie that celebrates Irish stereotypes more than The Quiet Man? Well, Darby O'Gill and the Little People is the film for you. Yeah, I'm not gonna act like a lot of this isn't played up to the nth degree and over the top, and oh yeah, it can be painful at times. But again, to its credit, there's a real charm that goes along with it. They have very likable actors that have a lot of heart. The effects are unbefriggin-leavable, even by today's standards. And the story is just a great hodgepodge of all sorts of things Irish and goofy and mythical and legendary and all that fun stuff. So what's the story? Darby O'Gill is an old man who's trying to find the king of the little people. He always tells stories in bars about how he comes across him, but of course nobody ever believes him. But Darby's destined to prove that he's right, and he comes across a well that he falls down through easily the worst effect in the movie. Seriously, with all these other groundbreaking effects, you couldn't do that one a little better? And he comes across King Brian and his merry men. They say that he has to stay there forever, but he manages to slip out. When King Brian goes to capture him back, Darby takes advantage and captures him instead. And every time he's trying to prove someone that he actually captured the king of the leprechauns, King Brian always has some sort of trick to fool him again. So that's one story going on. The other is that Darby has a daughter, a beautiful young maiden named Katie, who apparently is being courted by Sean Connery. Yup, Sean Connery. And on top of that, he sings.
She is my dear, my darling one, my smiling and beguiling one. I love the ground she walks upon, my darling Irish girl.
Yep, there's nothing like a Scottish man doing an Irish accent while poorly dubbing his own voice in a musical moment. But things heat up when Katie is on death's door. Only in Irish lore, it's not the Grim Reaper that comes for her, it's the Banshee. A lot of people may remember that I put this as the #1 scariest nostalgic moment and everyone sort of called bullshit on it. And yeah, maybe they're right, maybe it is a little silly now, but I'm sorry, this thing still scares the shit out of me, especially when he opens the door here. That is scary as fuck. Yeah, the effect is kind of dated. Yeah, we know how it's done, but just, oh, it's just so creepy. And that's kind of one of the nice things about this movie. Even though there's a lot of chipper, upbeat things in it, there is also sort of that dark undertone that's throughout the whole thing. The things that the people want to do in this are actually pretty mean. Darby tries to feed the leprechaun to his cat, or the leprechauns try to keep Darby there for the rest of his life. Hell, Darby tries to rob them on several occasions. There's headless horsemen on carriages. It's kind of messed up. It's kind of like a dozen Aesop fables being webbed together with Irish lore, and it works out pretty well, and still creates for the most part a pretty flowing narrative. The actors, I think, find just that right mix of charming and kinda goofy. The guy who plays Darby is pitch perfect. He is just so enjoyable. He kind of reminds me of a white Uncle Remus. It's just, how can you not enjoy his stories? How can you not enjoy every single time he opens his mouth and starts talking? He's just friggin' delightful. Sean Connery, though pretty unknown at the time, is actually a pretty good lead in this too. I swear to God, Darby's daughter must have the prettiest, most adorable smile in this. Oh my God, I just want to eat her up. Even though she's not dubbed very well either.
He is my dear, my darling one, his eyes so sparkling, full of fun. No other can match the likes of him.
You actually really feel this sense of community in this town. You feel like you understand them and actually kind of want to know them more. You kind of want to go to this pub, or you kind of want to work in these fields, or you kind of want to eat dinner in this house. I don't know, there's just something very homely about it that I really like. Though, yeah, I don't know how Irish people would necessarily look at it because, kind of obviously, it's a bit over the top. It's kind of like how the 70s look back on the 50s and we got Grease. This is kind of how white Americans look at Irishmen, and, well, this is the product of that. But I think its heart is in the right place, and like I said, I think these actors are just so good and so charming and so likable, and the effects are incredible, and the music is great, and oh, there's just so much to like in it. So it's hard to say. If you're an Irish person, I can vouch for it, and I could be totally wrong in saying that you won't get offended. You have every right to be offended if you are. But just know that a lot of people nowadays know that this is played up as well, and enjoy it because it is just so fun and silly. Especially if the people watching know that it's played more for goofs and laughs. So I say it's definitely a fun flick, and worth checking out.
My darling Irish girl.
Well, I hope you like Dalmatians, or you're really not gonna like this movie. Well, okay, I shouldn't be that mean to it, but let's just be honest. It's a bunch of Dalmatians. They walk around, they look cute, they talk, they bark, they, I don't know, just do cutesy stuff. If you like that, you're gonna love this film. If not, it's a bit of a bore. I guess there are a few things that stand out about it, like the villain Cruella de Vil, which, ever since the live-action version, has become one of the most infamous villains of all time. And she is a lot of fun, it's just a great design. Sort of this weak, fragile woman under this gigantic, hairy, monstrous fur coat. She's both glamorous and hideous at the same time, and actually is a pretty cool design. And the character's a lot of fun too, constantly screaming, constantly yelling, but always trying to look fabulous while doing it. Her motivation is to get as many Dalmatian puppies as she can to make a bajillion fur coats. And once 15 puppies of our main characters get abducted, which somehow makes the front pages for some reason, the search is on to go and find them. The rest of the characters are not bad, they're just kind of phoned in. The husband and wife are a typical nice husband and wife. The side characters are typical sort of dopey side characters. I think the only one I ever really got into was the cat, because there was just this feeling he would never give up. I mean, yeah, he's constantly screaming, he's constantly running, but he's always sticking with the puppies. Look at that, they're about to bash their brains out, he's still there trying to protect them. That's awesome, go kitty. And I guess part of the joke of the movie is how seriously they're treating the dogs. Like how the husband is just as paranoid about the birth of the puppies as, well, the dog is. Or how when the puppies are kidnapped, the maid goes out screaming into the streets and, like I said, it makes front page papers. I don't know, for me, I never found it that funny, so I guess it never got many laughs. I guess the climax is kind of fun. It is rare that you see a car chase in a Disney film, especially with Cruella behind the wheel. And I do enjoy how the car continues to get stripped down and almost starts to turn into just as big a monster as she is. But aside from that, I don't think it has the charm as something like Lady and the Tramp had, or even the animation for it. Although I guess it was sort of groundbreaking in that they were testing rotoscope and copying and so forth and how many puppies they could show. But I don't know if that makes it one of the better Disney films. If you're a dog fan or a Dalmatian fan, you'll probably like it fine, but if not, it's not horrible, it's just not that engaging. Take it for what it's worth, not one of my personal faves. Well, before her breakthrough performance in the unbelievably popular Good Morning Miss Bliss, Hayley Mills got her start with Disney in the classic film The Parent Trap. The story? Two identical twin girls are separated at birth but then coincidentally meet up at a summer camp. At first they're offended that the other dare look like the other one, and they try playing practical jokes on each other. But after a while, they start to talk to each other more and identify with one another, and find out that they're actually sisters. So they decide to step things up a bit and switch places. One daughter finally meeting her father for the first time, and the other finally meeting her mother for the first time. Eventually it's revealed what happened, and the mother and the father get together and try to decide what to do. While that's going on, the girls try to set a trap, a parent trap, if you will, to try and get them back together. This is especially tricky seeing how the father is marrying another woman, who of course is a stick in the mud who never knows how to have fun and always needs her comeuppance to be given to her by, well, our two main heroes. This is definitely not a movie like Darby O'Gill or Davy Crockett where there's big adventures or anything like that. It's a much smaller kind of story. And as smaller stories go, it's okay. It kept my interest, I wanted to know what was gonna happen, and at the time the split screen technology was unbelievable, but now it's kind of obvious. Really the focus of the movie is on Hayley Mills, who does a great job as both girls. And what makes it so good is that you know distinctly their personalities and which one is which, but it's never overplayed. It's not like one is super mean and super harsh and the other is like a complete angel. They're both still real girls with real problems and, well, real personalities. And that's tough to do for a child actor, and she pulls it off really well. I'm personally never a fan of those romantic comedies where they're gonna marry the snob and you know they shouldn't be together and they go back and forth whether or not the couple you know is gonna get together is really gonna get together. It drives me nuts. I think that's partially why I like the first half of this movie much more than I like the second half, where it actually is focusing on getting the parents together. The father and mother do make a good couple, it's just, why do we have to have that cliched character there? At least to this movie's credit, this was done long before this was repeated over and over in, say, Wedding Crashers and other romantic comedies. So I guess you can give it a little leeway there too. On the whole, I see the movie as kind of a cute waste of time. There's nothing of that much value to it, but there's nothing I feel like I've really lost. It just kind of is what it is, a cute little movie about two girls who look alike and turned out are sisters. They share their emotions, do girly things, get in trouble and mishaps, and it's fine for what it is. It's just not a film I'm going to be watching over and over and over because I like it so much. But once wasn't bad, I just think that's all I need. If you got the time and you just want to see a charming little film with a charming little child actress, this isn't a bad one to check out.
The Parent Trap.